Let's toast.
Okay.
We gotta carry on tradition.
Carry on.
Salute.
Salute.
Nice.
Welcome to the Inner Workings podcast. It's amazing to have you here. If you want to introduce yourself.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Uh-huh.
Well, my name is Albertina Thabisani Ncube. I am originally from Zimbabwe. I was raised up in New Zealand. I lived there for about 8-9 years, I think. And then I've been in Australia for 11 years this April.
Congrats.
Yeah. And I'm a creative photographer, videographer. Just like all-round creative, I should say. Yeah.
Creative director, that's for sure.
Yeah, and creative
That's what
director as well. Yeah. I'm trying to get used to saying that, but I
Please
think
do.
I am,
No,
right?
that's from what I've seen. I've been doing a lot of research. This is the first guest we've had on that I've had to really dive deep into, and it's actually been amazing.
Nice.
First off, just so impressive, honestly.
Thank you.
Like, it's really... And how do you only just turn 22?
Yeah, just turned.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess first, I have a lot of questions, but first off, what sparked your interest into getting into the creative field? Because not everyone goes into it.
Well, what's your journey? Like, what made you start?
What's my journey? All right. So I guess it's just like a typical journey. I think the way it started. So basically, like, my 16th birthday came, and I told my parents, like, "Oh, I want a camera," and my parents are very kind. And they were like, okay, that's something we can do.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to mom and dad. They came through.
Most parents don't support the creative.
That's what I'm
arts,
saying. I was very,
yeah.
my journey's been very interesting. Like, they actually brought me my first camera. Funny enough, I didn't use it for about 9 months. It was just chilling in my room. And then I had some friends, and we'll do photo shoots in the city. I was 16? I don't want to say it, but I might have been a city rat. Remember that phase in early 2015 when there was city rats? Unfortunately, I'm still trying to. I don't want to call myself that, but looking back, low key.
It's part of the journey.
Low key.
It's part
to
of the
be
journey.
honest,
You got to start somewhere.
So yeah, I would go into the city, do photos with my homies and stuff, whatever. And then I got into event photography, which is where I started my photography business, ATN Photography. And it was just parties, house parties, birthday parties, whatnot. And eventually that grew into weddings, baby showers, more formal events. I recently just actually came out of that. I rebranded that photography business. And now I just focus on weddings and photo shoots. But in terms of
what was the motivation behind that rebrand?
I got tired of taking photos at parties. Hey, it was becoming dreadful. The money was nice, but I just got to a point where I didn't care about the money because mentally I was just I can't be bothered. You know what I mean? I decided to just take care of my own mental state.
Health and well-being.
Yeah, I was you know what? I'm just going to take care of my own mental being. The money is good and everything, but if I'm not happy going and doing these jobs for people, especially if it's their big their first birthday or really big events for them, and I don't feel like I'm in.
You can't do your best work.
Yeah, exactly. So I was slacking. Not gonna lie, with some clients, I just started slacking because I think I lost that
The passion.
that passion, But as well, I rebranded so I could focus more on my creative work, which is a positive. So in terms of my creative work, I think it started around I'd always done photo shoots, but really when I realized this is what I want to do was when I went to Zimbabwe in 2017, 2018. I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, but it was when I did the documentary.
No,
Right.
no.
Just,
You
you just run. Yeah, you just run. This is you. Yeah.
I've got knowledge. I can jump in at any point. Don't worry.
Yeah. So when I went to Zim 2017, 2018, we'll get into that. But yeah, I did a documentary. And when I came back to Australia and I had met other creators from my own country living in an economy that wasn't as great as Australia. And we had so many similarities, but then again, they struggle a bit more than I do. That's when I realized, you know what, I know what I want to do. I want to start working with creators back home. trying to bring them out into Australia, or like just helping them build a name internationally, you know, because in Zimbabwe, there's not many platforms where creatives get like
opportunities.
Yeah,
or like,
and like national, like international recognition. You know what I mean? So I thought, like, why don't I be that person, since there's not really anyone there, especially like someone in Australia, maybe the UK, but in Australia, I'd never met anyone that's Zimbabwean that's doing what I'm doing. So yeah, I think it was around 2017, 2018. That's when I like really started to dive into my creative phase.
so what opportunities did like sprung up from that? From you trying to bridge the gap between, you know, diaspora and, you know.
What opportunities? I think, dang, that's like a serious question.
Okay.
I don't know.
I was okay. Essentially,
what?
where I
Okay.
wanted to lead it was discuss how you did some of the event photography while you were back home, and I think in South Africa as well. You did like the GQ cover photography and stuff like that.
Right. So like, yeah, I guess 2017, 2018, when I went back home, like I would go back, growing up, I would always go back to Zim like every year with my parents and stuff. But it was only like during that year when I did my documentary, that's when I met all of these creatives. And I met them all through like Instagram. So only until then, that's when I met people. So one of my closest friends that I did meet while I was there, Gilmore T, shout out Gilmore. He works with like GQ, South Africa. Who else does he work with? He works with like some pretty big companies and like businesses and stuff in the industry back home. So, and I guess like being friends with him, he kind of like hooked me up with some gigs. Every time I'm there and like there's something going on, you know, we'll end up like working together. So yeah, I think I feel like it was more of like an experience. I don't think that much really came out of it for me because I'm not really based there. So for me, it was just like, oh yeah, cool. I took photos. They ended up being on GQ magazine, you know. But in terms of like an opportunity for me, I always think about it. I genuinely don't think like anything.
Because I thought that was a big deal.
I know, right?
Because when
downplaying it.
when we were talking, because I looked at it and I'm like, damn, okay, cool. I see where this is headed. I thought you had a movement and a plan, because I would have flipped it and like capitalized off that a lot more.
Right.
And I noticed you don't even have any of that anywhere, not on your website,
Do you know
nothing.
what's crazy though? I think this is where I've realized this is my problem. Towards the end of last year, I was just kind of like reflecting on some things that I've done through my creative journey. I like always downplay my successes. Like, yeah, my photos were featured on GQ magazine. I did a documentary that was screened in Perth, Melbourne, and Sydney. I did a TED Talk as well in November last year.
Huge.
I did a photography exhibition in August last year, but like I struggle to like, I don't know how to express like how, because I don't want to
what
brag.
it is?
I don't know, like how do I do it?
It's not even that. I also feel like the creative arts industry is not yet recognized to the point where you realize that's a big accomplishment, because there's not many people that have done it prior to us. So for us to actually do it and you get it done and you're like, oh, cool, you move on to the next thing.
Literally,
but little do you know that, oh my God, this is like something huge or something worth like, you know, like talking about or expressing. Because I'm not sure about you, but there's a lot of times where I'll bump into local creatives and they're like, yo, whatever event or whatever we've done, that was so dope, right? And I'm thinking like, which event? You know what I mean? Because it's like, for us, it's like, cool, we've done that, onto the next. But until you take a step back and realize, oh snap, that's actually like a foundation or a blueprint for someone else to, you know, gain inspiration from or take from, for them to use or to strive towards. But because there's not that dialogue, it's kind of difficult to, I guess, structure or put into place to where you're like, oh snap, this is you know, this is worth something. And I'm sure you probably have situations like that where people are like, oh, you know, this, that, or they want to work with you or this, and you don't really think like, I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't think it's necessarily like a bad trait that you know, we all kind of think like that. Because I think that's why we're able to do these things, because we're always sort of like, you know, looking on to the next thing, not necessarily, you know, always striving to do, you know, better and whatnot. I mean, the way I sort of deal with it is just like, it's, you know, you kind of, in a way, keep that sort of stuff private. Like, you know, I'll like, you know, with people, you know, humble and stuff, you know, because that's just the way you are. But then, you know, when I'm walking around at home, like I do a lot of pacing up and down here, and, you know, I might make something or something might happen that's success, and I'm like, yeah, I'm dope. But I just like, I feel that I keep the ego private. It's myself. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean no one has no ego. Like that's, you just got to use it in the right way. And sometimes like that's what happens to people. Like they get a few successes and then like the ego drowns out some of the work ethic. You know what I mean? But you just got to let that not happen and just keep going. So it's not necessarily a bad trait, but at the same time, it's a balance because, you know, if you're just like never celebrate any wins or never think you're doing any good, then that's not good for your mental health.
Because you got to acknowledge it too. And it's got to be recognized. Like, because you didn't even bring it up. I knew as soon as I asked that question prior, because I was like, oh, cool, this will give her a chance to describe it in her own way. But then you had completely like, you weren't even thinking that way. So I had to actually physically bring it up because I think those little things need to be celebrated and to be heard also. You feel me? No,
it's true. And like, since you mentioned like mental health, I think after my exhibition last year, I went like, so I started planning it in like December the year before. And because I got funding and whatnot, there was like a whole process. And remember, like you helped me with like planning the event. So it took months to do. And then once it actually happened, I was then like, well, what do I do now? You know what I mean? And like, I didn't even celebrate what I did because I think my mind just went into like a down moment thinking like, okay, well, I've done this, then like, what do I do now? You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain it, but I just kind of like, I didn't even celebrate what I did. I was more focused on like, I've done this, what do I do now? You know what I mean? I don't know.
It's the balance. It's tricky. I feel like as I'm getting older, I mean, I'm 24. Yeah. You know, so when I was, I hate saying that, when I was your age.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I experienced like, you know, because I've run off to Sydney and done all that stuff. And like, you know, you experience that tunnel vision, you know, like things might be going well or whatever. And then, you know, there might be a plateau where there's nothing. I think for me, in my experience, the way that I've combated that is to, one, just always make sure that I'm present essentially with what I'm doing, you know what I mean? And that's a difficult thing to do, you know what I mean? Hard. Especially with my brain, because I'm ADHD, but was never medicated. So I'm always flying around, but you know, it's just always coming back and being like, you know, we've talked about this before, like COVID, obviously a horrible thing for so many people, but it has shown me that like, okay, square one is good, you know, if I can just create and that's kind of it. Yeah. And so when you sort of go forward with that sort of, that gratitude, it kind of can balance out the ambition, because you have to be, you know, obviously all three of us are quite ambitious people and that's great, but it can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming. So it's just like finding out these things to manage it would be the right word. So, but that just comes with experience and with age. And so I'm finding it as I'm getting older, it's getting easier. Yeah, no, that's true. I think, it's crazy how you mentioned that, because it is something that I do struggle with, and I'm trying to I'm still trying to figure out how I can, you know, celebrate those. The
thing is, also in this industry, if you don't talk your shit, you also won't get your flowers. Because people won't appreciate it.
Dude, what? No, copy and paste.
It's true, because there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes before a product, a documentary, something creative is done. So when people actually get the opportunity to experience it and, you know, be there or whatever it is, we as the people behind the scenes kind of forget. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I definitely kind of feel you on that perspective as to how much time and effort has gone into it. So it's there's a time and a place to talk your shit and to own it, but then there's also a time to also work on it and make sure that you're justifying it for when you do need to. I'm not saying go around and be like,
no, for sure, yeah,
but
exactly.
But like, if you don't, people will downplay it, and you won't get
true.
that recognition or that respect or whatever it is that you deserve.
That is so true. I never thought about it like that. Dang, copy and paste.
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste. Yeah.
But yeah, moving on to your journey. Back to it. Sorry, I cut you off.
No,
this is how it always works.
That was it.
Yeah. That was it.
Yeah, that was my journey. I think, like I said, when I went back to Zim and did that whole documentary, that's when I was like...
And the name of that documentary, just so people know, please check it out because it's amazing.
So it's called ABANTU People of Art. It's on YouTube under my...
We'll put it in the description. Y'all can check the link. Yeah.
Albertina Ncube. But yeah, that's when I did my documentary, and ever since then, it's like I've just been meeting all these creators from Zim. It's like one person after another, and there's so many, you know.
Really impressive, and it's like from what I gather from the documentary, there's a really cool, like, ambitious vibe there, you know. Yeah. And obviously, look, obviously Zim and Perth are completely different places, but I don't know. I think the one thing that it shares is that, you know, I forget, actually I've written this down, but I think it was the second interview that you did with he was a Tanashi Carlson.
Oh, Charleston.
Yeah. And, you know, he was saying that he was expressing that, you know, creatives and higher up people aren't sort of giving us the recognition that we deserve. I think that's something that we've always talked about in Perth. You know, I think that's part of the reason that we actually have even started this podcast is because Perth's always been a place where, you know, it's not been a place that's been taken seriously. You know what I mean? Creatively, in a sense, you know what I mean? It's always been like, oh, if you want to do this, you got to go to Sydney
or go to Melbourne.
So that's like, you know, I did that, but you know, and it's and it's good because I feel like you've taken it upon yourself to be like, this is really cool. I'm gonna like do something about it and showcase. And you know, even that I was just watching before, there was that it was like I don't know the name of the people, but it was like a convention that you were at. It's a video on your YouTube channel. And you're talking about how, you know, it's a little clip and it's like how I'm talking about how I can, you know, help people in Zim to, you know, reach. And I think that's such an amazing thing. Yeah. And, you know, it just takes people to do it. So that's what I admire about you is you're obviously someone that's like, you're a really like a big doer. You just want to do things. And so that documentary was like, it was really, please do check it out if you're watching this. It's very, very well put together and the people are so interesting. But tell us about that. Was that like something you had, where you'd obviously planned to do it before you'd gone there, or was it sort of just...
So like I got into, I love sharing this. It's so funny. So I love documentaries. So like when you said today you were watching a documentary, I was like, sorry. What did you watch? Because I was like, oh great, I love documentaries too. And then you said my documentary.
That's tying into what we're talking about before.
You're
so non-egotistical that you didn't even think that I was talking about it.
No, I was like, oh okay, I love documentaries. Maybe I've watched it too. I think I even
said the documentary. And like, I was like, wait, was that
and you're like, is this clicking?
I was like, oh, what documentary? No, yours. Like, what are you talking about?
So funny.
Just I complimented you on your work, so that was a bit, but you know, that's a great quality.
No, like I think it's because I love documentaries. So I think what had happened before I did the documentary, I was watching a lot of I'm not too sure. Do you know Vice? Vice on YouTube, ID as well. They do like mini documentaries and stuff like that. So I'd been like binging on like all of those. And there was this one ID documentary that I saw interviewing photographers based in the UK. And some of them were like African and stuff like that. And it just clicked to my head like, wait a minute, like I've never seen a documentary about creators in Zimbabwe. I'm going to be there in like 2 months. Why don't I, you know, I think maybe like it was like 4 weeks actually. I was like, why don't I, you know, do something while I'm there? So it wasn't anything like formal. It was literally just like, well, I've never seen anything in Zimbabwe, so why don't I do it? And then, so the first guys that I interviewed were in Botswana. Got to Zim, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And a few days after, we drove into Botswana. And I was literally just on Instagram and I was like, hey, I'm a photographer based in Perth. Are there any creatives like in this town that I'm in? Kid you not, like maybe like an hour later, Bankhead messaged me on Instagram. It was like, hey, you know, you're in my city, blah, blah, blah. This is my music.
Yeah, they're crazy. We'll actually put a link to all those people.
Oh my gosh, I love their work. Literally, like some of the coolest people I've ever met. Literally spoke on the phone, and we're like, okay, let's meet up tomorrow at the swimming pool area at the hotel I'm staying at. So it wasn't anything planned, and I just had my camera, and my camera had a mic on it, and I did just shot. Just like that, freehand.
So that trip really sparked something within you.
Literally.
So what was it? What made you like? What was the oh shit moment that this is what I want to continue doing?
Because you didn't hear about it here in Australia. You know what I mean? And like, I think for me, I was more like passionate about it because again, like it's my country, it's where I'm from. And I live here in Australia. I feel like I have more opportunities here, but then why don't I support my people back home
creating
with my
platform?
Exactly, which is what Abantu is all about, like the events, the documentary, and everything Abantu based is literally just creating a platform to connect creators in Zimbabwe to the creative industry in Australia and vice versa. You know what I mean?
I feel like, and that's like actually your whole from what I've gathered and what I've read in your bios and stuff. It's that your whole philosophy is about creating platforms for people 100%. That don't necessarily because the media is very specific in who they want to promote. So it's really cool that it's a very difficult thing. So it's beautiful, but
yeah. So that's how I came up with the documentary, and then I got back to Bulawayo, my city, and same thing. Went on Instagram. I was like, "Hey, creatives in the city, where you at?" Tinashe Charleston messaged me. I'd never met him until that moment.
So what, you DM'd them or you just put something on your story or what happened?
You know how on Instagram you put your location? You can put like your location on a post.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that's what
so
I meant.
Clever,
man, I put
actually.
my location on the post.
Like, everyone can view it. It's like a public thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
that's crazy.
And somehow...
I've never thought about
somehow
doing
they
that.
magically found it. Tinashe Charleston was like, hey, I'm a photographer. And I guess with Bulawayo being a small city, everyone knows everyone in the creative industry, which is interesting because it's kind of like Perth. You know what I mean? Like, if you know this creative, they know the other creative. It's like a cycle. So I met Tinashe. He's been like one of my best friends ever since then. And when I was interviewing him, because we did the interview at the art gallery, which is like a common space for creators to link up. And that's where we did our interview. And then Indigo Saint walked past. Tinashe then was like, hey, this is Indigo. And then, because he's the rapper, he was the third guy.
I know, Indigo, yeah. He won the best, was it one of the, the award for best rapper in Zim or something?
Best, I think it was Underground.
Best Underground,
yeah. He was just walking past and then Tinashe introduced me. And I was like, yo, you want to jump in my documentary? And he was like, yeah. And then he was in, and then George Masarira, he was the artist, the one that does painting.
Man. That was unreal,
he was upstairs in the studio, and Tinashe went to introduce me to him. And I was like, yo, you want to hop on too? It was literally just like one person after
like
the other.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't planned, but I guess like through meeting one person, I was able to meet like the next person and like so on. And
but it was organic and
so
authentic.
organic.
That was the one thing that I just came across of, like how much authenticity that there was in that creative scene, because they were just doing them, obviously
Literally,
it's hip hop music and whatnot, so it's always stemming from America or whatnot, but it didn't there was a degree of authenticity that I think was almost unprecedented. Like, it was really, really amazing. They're just really doing their own style and doing their own thing, and also just very humble. So it makes sense that you would able to go there and for it to all be like, all tie in and everyone know everyone and whatnot. And there was you never met these people, but it was all the vibe. You didn't come across any, someone have them in an interview that was, arrogant or whatnot. No, they were just doing them. And the thing that I really loved about it is I think nearly every one of the people that you interviewed all talked about doing it mainly because of the love, what I mean? And struggling with the, battling like what their parents wanted them to do. But it was just, it was all about the love. And I think like, that's something that's almost missing in sometimes in places that have more of a platform, because it becomes more about like, how hot I am on like IG and like, I can sponsor a post, and and it all becomes
my
like
TikTok's
about
popping.
we're constantly talking about TikTok. God damn. Anyway, so
it's another topic.
Oh yeah. So like the authenticity is something that I'm always looking for, and it's only something you can really feel. Obviously you consume it with your ears and your eyes, but it's got to hit somewhere for it to. And that's the main thing that I was like, that this is really, really, really authentic. So I think what you're trying to do, it has like a lot of legs, because the talent and stuff, that's all there. It's just about having the platform,
Literally.
so.
What frustrations have you faced, or do you continue to face now that you're in this creative field, like actively trying to like make moves and make a living out of it?
Dang, that's an interesting question.
I come with the hits,
I think that's where like I struggled a little bit end of last year, beginning of this year. So what happened was when I did that documentary, I was actually studying residential drafting. Oh, wow. So I was at TAFE. I was doing residential drafting, a certificate, and like graduating high school, I was like, you know what, I want to do architecture. But obviously by then, that's when I didn't realize, like, I hadn't found my true...
And sorry to cut you off, but was that motivated by you or by financially?
Your parents or...
No, honestly, I think it was motivated by me. But funny thing is, like, literally, I think it was like a few weeks before graduation, I told my parents, like, I don't know if I still want to do architecture. My mom was like, where's this coming from? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean you don't want to do it? Like, you know? So I guess to an extent, maybe, yes, they did kind of pressurize me, but I had been telling them like I wanted to do architecture. So I can't really blame them. You know what I mean? They were just a little bit surprised.
But I also feel like you can't really blame a teenager coming out of high school for not knowing what they want to do immediately after. Like, I changed my degree 3 times.
You're lying.
So imagine those battles. Going to my parents, hey.
Yeah, that's different. That's different. So like after high school, I went to TAFE, did residential drafting. That was a year. And then I did a diploma in building design, which is commercial drafting. Super dope. I love it. It's really cool, just like understanding how like a house is built or like a building is built. Ever since then, I actually don't look at buildings the same anymore. I literally analyze like the floor levels, what materials did they use.
Does that help when it comes to photography in terms of like spacing and like framing?
Framing, framing is super important. Like I always like focus on like the lines and stuff like that and like angles. So yeah, it does help a bit. Obviously depending on like what setting you're in. But so I did drafting. And then, where was I going with this?
Frustrations.
Yeah, so I did that. And then, I finished end of 2019. And then I was like, I don't want to do this 9 to 5 office job. This is not for me. Let me not even bother looking for a job. You know what I mean? Not gonna lie, I lied to my parents. I was like, "There's no jobs in the drafting industry right now." I just didn't.
They're not hiring me.
I did. Yeah, I was like, I tried to apply for jobs. There's nothing there. I just didn't even bother. Like, looking.
But they don't know, can't hurt them. It's okay.
Exactly. I was like, there's no point in me looking if I already know I don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
It's an interesting thing to touch on, because I've always said that like there's honestly no point in trying to do something if you don't love it, because even if it is motivated financially, you're not going to be successful financially, because if you want to be successful even financially, you have to be good at it, and to be good at it you have to love it. So I think that's
But it's funny you say that, because now what I'm doing is I did a certificate in individual support, which is like care work, disability. But I chose that instead of drafting because I prefer the flexibility in that area.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Because I was kind of afraid, like, okay, if I do get a drafting job, but then I decide to go back to Africa for like 3 months, that pressure of like going in and
job.
like resigning, and like I don't want people to then look at me and be like, oh, she's not serious, you know. I think maybe it was a bit of fear at the same time. I was afraid of like how people in that industry, which is a very big industry, would look at me if I decide to go to Africa for like 6 months. You know what I mean?
And then come back.
And then come back. So I was like, you know what? Let me like get into an industry which doesn't have too much pressure. So I got into like the care industry, and I love it. It's super flexible, you know what I mean? And I guess the other reason why I did that is so I could save financially, because like I told you earlier, I'm trying to go back to Africa, you know? So I have a certain financial goal that I want to reach by like next year. And once I've hit that, I'm packing my bags and I'm
like
going.
Permanently.
I mean, we'll see.
Shit.
I'm not planning on...
hell yeah, I saw that look. It's kind of do your thing.
I'm genuinely not planning on getting a return ticket. So it will literally just be like when I feel like coming back, you know? But I feel like only until I've reached that certain financial goal, then I'll be able to go, because I mean, like, I think I'm a bit lucky because my parents, we have a house and stuff. We have like a car, so I won't have to pay rent. I don't have to look for accommodation. That's already there. My expenses will literally just be like
getting there. Yeah,
getting there, and like the work that I do with creators while I'm there, you know. So yeah, but like I think like what your question was, like the like frustrations is like that whole journey that I've gone through, you know what I mean? And through that journey, I've also been, that's when I was discovering what I wanted to do as a creative. But then again, in my own personal life and like career wise and like financial wise, I feel like I've just been hopping around, and I don't know, like I want to get to a place where like what I do in the industry is going to be like I guess every creative wants to do that. Like that's your full-time income. That's where you get all your money.
It's always, it's always like, evolving though. Like you were saying before about how, you know, you stop doing parties and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's always like, you always start something, you know, and you may love it. And it's also, okay, cool. This is also like financially sustainable. Yeah. For me, I feel like if we were to make a comparison, for me, it was DJing.
No way.
Yeah. So that was something I really did love, but then it became too motivated.
He used to play one days before you guys knew what one day was.
Yeah, I played one days a couple of times. But anyway, that was back when there was a love for it. But then it got so financially motivated that it actually took this guy to make me realize that it was I was cooked. Like I was cooked about the way I was thinking about it. And it was like. Yeah, and then that's the thing. You then you're like, okay, cool. I'm gonna move on, and it's almost like I feel like when you're doing something creative and not even creative, maybe in just life, you're forever taking a leap. You know, it's always like, okay, I'm gonna do something creative. That's a leap, and then you're taking leaps within that creative. So for me, it was like, okay, I want to try and make the studio sustainable, because I wasn't really making any money from being in the studio. It was more of but I was working towards that, and DJing was holding me over. So I was like, okay, cool. Now I want to. So and then you just continue to take leaps, you know. And I think maybe those leaps get easier and easier as there's more opportunities. But you know, that's what's.
And also, you need to. I feel I'm a big believer in like the process. You need to go through all of that.
That's true.
To figure out that, okay, this is part of the journey. This is not the end goal.
Yeah,
this is
definitely not.
You need to, you know, win some, lose some, be burnt a little bit, you know, all of that, because that's going to help you at that next level.
Yeah.
So that you don't repeat those minuscule mistakes at that next level and so forth. So it's always like a constant build.
Yeah,
like you said, it's a constant leap. You're always betting on yourself. So yeah, 100%.
And it takes it takes a particular type of person to be able to, you know, to do that. And I think that's where you see success, because it's a sort of that, you know, I'm not afraid to sort of fail, you know what I mean? And if I do, I'm going to learn things from them, you know, and you will. I'm constantly, you know, taking L's, whatever, you know. Maybe behind closed doors and whatnot, but like, you know, it's a part. And especially when you're young as well, like you have to do so much stuff in this life now with so little experience or whatnot. So, but yeah, no, and I think, you know, all this stuff but that's the thing. I think you're someone that's really not afraid to do that. You know what I mean? And I think even tying back to what we're talking about, earlier about, you know, sort of our personalities of, you know, you're not, you know, having the ego private and stuff. It all ties in, you know what I mean? Because that's having that sort of mindset helps you to sort of prepare for those leaps. But
that's true. Yeah. And like I've met some other people that tried to get into the creative industry, but I think based on their personality, they were a little bit like you're saying, like you just have to be a bit, what's the word? A bit not afraid. I don't know. What's the word?
It's you just got to bet on yourself.
It's
What's the word?
I hate the term thick skin, but I don't know. You know what I mean? It's not really like
don't be afraid of failing. Like, you know,
that's honestly, I believe that point there, that's the biggest things most creatives have, like as a block. The feeling of failure or the possibility of freezes a lot of people and stops them from trying.
Yeah, which is what I'm trying to explain, like, which is unfortunate. But I guess with my personality, what I'm trying to explain is I think in general, though, I've just always been a person that doesn't necessarily focus on the things that haven't succeeded.
Negatives.
You know, the negatives, yeah, I don't necessarily focus on that. I look at it more as like a journey, you know what I mean? Like, okay, this is a process. What did I learn from this, you know? And what can I do next time or like for the next step?
And it has nothing to do with talent. That's the thing. People really get messed up with that thought process of like it's all talent, because I know some really, really talented people, musicians, and I sometimes like I look at what they're doing and we have conversations and I just almost think like, oh, mentally, like I don't really know if you're necessarily cut out for this. Like,
right,
and
exactly.
I don't mean that to be like derogatory or down-putting, but it's like, it's almost like concern. Like, I'm like, you really don't like, can't deal with like this. It takes someone like a really tough mind, I think is what we're looking for. Your strong mind to be able to do this, because, you know, you have to sort of be able to stay positive and be able to like, you know, it's all about making it sustainable, not even financially, but like mentally sustainable for yourself as 100%. Well. So
to touch on that, right? I have a question. As your brand has grown, both as a, you know, personal brand and your business, that exposure, how do you deal with like randoms that don't know you, that be like, oh, LB, and you're like, fuck. Does that happen to you as well? Like where,
a little bit, but
little bit, yeah.
I mean, it's
because you have to be out a whole lot, and like
really
I know what it's like, because I have to be out a whole lot too. So like, does that get to you, and how do you deal with that? Like, because it's also part of your well-being.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean?
It's funny. It's really funny. Like, there's
how does it make you feel?
Yeah, no, it's I don't want to say it feels good, but it's just interesting to.
But it does though.
Yeah, low key.
Of course,
yeah,
it does.
Yeah, like low key it does. But then again, I'm like, I think when I walk away from that moment, I'm like, so people really out here know me, like, you know what I mean, like
imposter syndrome a bit.
Yeah, and it's, I think it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning, like the fact that I don't celebrate my wins. It's like people, when they approach me, they'll be talking about something
those
that
wins.
I did, those wins, but then because I never celebrated it or like ever looked at it as a big deal, when they walk away, I'm like, wow, so you're telling me like this person really got inspired by like what I did, but then to myself, I'm like, what? Like that was barely anything, you know?
And also that's just one person that had the balls or the courage to come to like actually say it. Some people be feeling that way, but don't come say it there
was a girl, and like she was like, oh my gosh, I was so afraid to come up to you and like say it, but like I'm such a big fan of like your work and what you do. And I'm like, what work? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what do I do, you know? But again, I guess it goes back to exactly what you were talking about, celebrating your wins. It's only then when I realize myself what I've done, then I guess it'll click a bit more, you know? But yeah, it's an interesting experience, like having people come up to me that I don't necessarily.
I think it's cool. I think you should like, you know, for me personally, I love it because I have a lot of time for those people. Like, like if they come up, I'm almost like, okay, like, can I help you in any way? You know what I mean?
Right,
like, can I you know, if we want to chat something, like I'm always keen to like, because I'm so passionate about it, chat about it, you know?
Yeah.
And then I get something out of it because like, obviously I'm never like, oh yeah, like I know I'm so great, like whatever. Of course not. But like, you know, once that that interaction is left and then I walk away from it, whatever, I'm actually, it's reassuring, you know? I'm like,
100%.
that's people
Some
think
random, no agenda.
Yeah.
Someone you don't know, not through a friend, and it's like, damn. And I'm like you, I'll give them the time of day because for someone to, like, I've been there where I'm like, man, I've wanted to just say what's up to this person and just give them their props and be like, yo, I really liked this, that, and the third. And for me, like, usually I leave it at that, dap them up, give them the flowers, and then like, because some people don't know how to handle that and they freeze, or they're not comfortable, or they don't expect it, or they have like a complex. So it's like, depending on how the interaction goes, then depends on the flow, whether or not that person's reciprocating it or not.
That's true.
But yeah, it's definitely like, it's
weird at first though, but I'm learning a lot to embrace it, and especially because obviously it's only people that are in Perth, so I'm always really like okay, cool, like can I help out in a way, like and not in like some weird like can I do all this stuff for you for free or whatever. It's more it's
so
just like
questions or
you know,
can
like
I point you to the right direction?
Or, exactly, because obviously you've been through some stuff that they think is cool, so if I can help someone, or even just inspire someone to take their leap, that's great. So I really love that, and I really have a lot of time for those people that want to do that, because I feel like it's an interaction where it benefits both parties, because I get a little kick out of it. I get a bit of reassurance of what I'm doing is good, and I walk away and then I pace up and down the room like, oh, people think I'm doing cool stuff. And then like and then they think like, oh, that's a what the thing, I just try to be like, I'm just a real person, I think especially in the arts, like people get I don't know the word, like it's like they get it's like people look at people who do arts like like Kanye West, or like they're not human, but everyone is just a person, you know what I mean? So that's when I have those interactions with people. That's when I try to just I'm just here. We can chat, like it's literally we'll go to sleep and bleed and cry and have failures,
so at the end of the day.
Touching just one last thing, I really didn't dive deep into the TED Talk situation.
Yes.
How did that come about? Can you jump into that?
Oh gosh.
You're driving, yeah? Who knows?
I'm not stating this on camera. I caught an Uber.
Uber everywhere.
I caught an Uber.
Oh, you still
straight.
Sorry, Ash and I'm speeding along.
Nah, it's part of the culture here, a little prosecco.
I think that's my fault. Oops.
I don't mind it, bro. It's the only time I get to drink leisurely.
Great. Dang. This is nice.
Yeah. And during the day. But yeah, moving along. Continue, yeah.
Topic for another day.
Different day.
Different day. How the TED Talk. What happened? Yeah, so it happened after my exhibition. I think like 2 weeks afterwards. I had a girl called Lauren. She works with the city of Armidale, and she just sent me an email. She was like, "Hey, I love your work. I'm hosting a TED Talk. Would you like to be a guest speaker?" And I was like,
what?
TED? Like me? And it's crazy because I think like during those few weeks after my exhibition, I was literally watching like TED Talk videos. You know what I mean? So when she emailed me, I was like, was I manifesting this?
Yeah.
It was just like crazy timing. And so literally got an email, did the whole process. And then
what is that process? Can you give us? Because I want to do a TED Talk.
Yeah.
Because I'm feeling some type of way right now. You're just glossing over it. Yeah.
See, I don't. Now you see where my problem is. I'm like I struggle to like a TED Talk is a big deal, but I feel like when I was doing it, I was just like, oh yeah, like cool, Kid you not? I was just like.
I very much doubt that.
Yeah, no, I'm being serious. I was
she would have, trust me.
I was just looking there like, like, all right,
we out here.
Yeah, okay, just casual TED Talk. So like, there's like a whole there's like a structure to it, There's like, I had like a time limit. I had up to like 18 minutes to speak. So it could be 18 minutes or like less, obviously. But there's like a whole guideline on like topics and like how you have to like talk about your topic. You can't be too personal. because I think I realized the purpose of like a TED Talk is you want your audience to leave with information. You know what I mean? Not necessarily with a story. You don't want to tell necessarily.
Not too much emotion attached to
it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Which is good. I think that's a good thing.
And I was so surprised. I was like, wow, this is very interesting. So like with my TED Talk, what I discussed was literally my journey growing up. So my journey being an African, but never growing up in Africa, and how through my journey as a creative, I've now been connected to where I'm from, despite never actually growing up in my own country. You know what I mean? And I guess obviously through that information during my TED Talk, I did kind of like shine a light on like not complications, but like struggles that creators face here in Australia and creators back home. You know what I mean? Just like more stuff about that, not necessarily talking too much about myself. But yeah, so there was like a whole structure to that. Did the TED Talk. Funny enough, I got told that it was going to be filmed and put on the TED YouTube channel, but I've not been updated since. So I should follow up.
You should follow up.
I should definitely.
I would want to watch it.
Yes.
Is there a link?
I think a lot of
Did anyone record it?
No, so yeah, there was someone recording it, but I haven't been updated since how the process is. I think I should follow up. But then again, I think the reason why I'm not following up because I was very like nervous during my talk. So I think I have like a fear of looking back at it. You know what I mean? My mind is like, do you really want to look at that?
You don't have to watch it though.
I know, but
to have it just there. No, I think
I really
chase it up, watch it so that next time you know where you can improve.
Yeah, totally.
I'm like avoiding it.
Because I watch after we put it out, I watch the episode so that I know, okay, cool, next time I can tweak this. And I'm sure if you watch like our episodes, the show's gotten more and more refined each episode as we've developed and gotten more comfortable on mic.
We look back at it.
And we look back at it.
Yeah.
And it's funny sometimes. I'm like, damn, I really said that.
Oh, you're telling me. You're telling me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's the thing. It's like, it's all about, refining it, you know what I mean? And I think this has actually been one of the best episodes we've done.
For
So
real?
I think so. Let us know in the comments. Yeah.
Comment down below.
That's actually YouTuber.
We should probably start. Okay. What would you tell young Albie today that you wish you could have told her before embarking on this journey?
Young Albie, sorry. What could I tell young Albie?
Or if not young Albie, or to the young creative that wants to take the leap but isn't too sure, like what advice do you have to give them?
Yeah, I think that's a better question because I always struggle to answer that. Like, what would I tell the young me? But what I would tell a young creative or someone that's coming into the industry is like, don't, like, okay, I get it. It's like a personality trait, but like, don't hold back. Like, don't be afraid. Kind of like put yourself out there. But don't get me wrong. There is some planning that you have to do. Like, obviously, like, you're going to have to like buy equipment depending on what you're doing.
Quality control. Exactly.
You know what I mean? You have to like know certain information before you get into something like, but then again, like don't focus too much on that, just kind of like put yourself out there because I feel like being a creative, it's a journey. You know what I mean? Like you can't just jump into the industry and then you got it, like I'm perfect, it's literally like growth. It's literally about growth. And you're always growing. You know what I mean?
On that note, sorry to cut you off. I feel like other creatives, what stops them from jumping in is they compare themselves at day zero with someone who's 5, 6, 7 years, and they think, how am I meant to compete with this person, or how am I meant to be in the same space as this person?
Right.
But really, you need to realize they were once at day zero.
Yeah.
They're just a little bit further along the line, through different experiences or exposures to be to where they're at. So don't compare yourself at ground zero to someone who's at ground, 100.
To add to that, I think it's about like the way I've conceptualized it recently is, and I think we touched on this in the last episode, is like it's almost about developing the ability to look at your art like kind of objectively.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's sort of like, and I don't know, maybe some people will disagree with me on this, but like it's almost about sometimes disconnecting from the art a little bit in terms of like, you know, it's your art essentially, like you've made it, but then at the end of the day, it's just art. So for me, it's music, obviously. So when I make something, like I make a demo, I might make 4 or 5 demos a week in a good week or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, their songs, so however I view them, they're obviously I have an attachment to them because, you know, it's come from my brain or whatever but there's this level of like looking at it objectively, and it's just like they're songs, you know what I mean, and that'll help you being able to make decisions on like, okay, is this ready or not, or is this, you know what I mean, without getting so emotionally attached to like, oh, it's bad, so it's
exactly
like if I make something and people don't resonate, or I make something and then the next day I'm like, oh, it's not good, I don't feel bad about myself. I'm just like, oh, that's what came out of me, and it necessarily, you know, whatever. And it's just like this sort of objectiveness that you can kind of, I think that helps mentally, for me at least. I don't know, some people might disagree with that, but
I think like just don't focus too much on like trying to be perfect, because I've learned like it's a journey, you know what I mean? And like I said, like I genuinely feel like as a creative, you'll never get to a day where you feel like I've made it, you know what I mean? Because it's growth. It's always growing, you know what I mean? You're always growing. And you also have to have that mindset. Like you can't then be, have a big ego, and then once you feel like you've reached that point and be like, you know what, I've made it, I'm good now, because it just goes, it's going to go down, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's very important. Like just go with the vibe, you know? And I think for me, because I started off with like photography, right? And I was calling myself a photographer, and then I got into like videography, and I was like photographer and videographer, but now I call myself like a creative director as well, you know?
That's what encompasses a creative director?
The reason why I chose creative director, because I actually Googled what a creative director is. I don't remember on top of my head, but it kind of
hit the points.
It hit, I feel like it hit the points.
And I feel like it is what you do. Like I really do. You know what I mean?
Me too. I think it's someone who can see the big picture. You know what I mean? Who can put the big picture together. You know, whether that's through photos or videos. It's like it's the, you know, and your field is imagery. So it's you know, it's like we've talked about many times, because this has mainly been music focused. It's like what you know, what is a producer, what is an executive producer, you know what I mean? And you know, for me, you know, that's someone who can put things together, you know what I mean? So for you, it's like you could go and like that documentary, you produce the documentary.
Yeah.
So you could say you're a filmmaker too.
Literally could. Jeez. And like, I was trying to find a word for like a person that has hosted events, because remember I did my screening in Perth, Melbourne, and Sydney for the documentary.
Wow.
And then the exhibition that I did in August. But then like, what do I call myself as a person that has done events, you know? What's that word?
I think it's still creative director.
Right, exactly.
I struggle to put a title.
That's why I chose the name creative director, because I feel like I've done all of these things, which then is creative, but then at the same time I'm kind of like directing, you know, and like putting things together. So I did Google the literal term of creative director, which is a little bit different, but I felt like to me that's just like the one word that I'm able to use that like puts everything that I've done together.
I like that. Any closing remarks? Because I think that's a good way to finish. You just wrapped it up, bowed nicely.
No, I really ain't got nothing.
Well, thank you
so much
coming
for
down.
Coming on. We really appreciate
and taking the time.
It's been nice to,
I think the people are gonna like it, because it's gonna be different from what we normally do. So
what do you guys usually do?
It's like you said, we do mainly focus on music, but we're like, we need to get music is encompassing of so many different aspects, and creative direction is one. Photography, media. We've had Dylan on the show. We've had producers. So it's like it's part of that arts and entertainment.
We're trying to
space.
just inspire creativity, you know, and like yourself, you know, just create a platform, you know, and take it upon ourselves to do that. So thank you so much for coming through. You know, I was really excited about this one. So
thanks for having me.
No, anytime. Like always, interact with us. come and talk to us. We're keen to like chat and help however we can and develop the scene. And you know, if there's any guests you'd love to see on, just let us know in the comments. And
yeah,
that's it.
In the workings with Albie, J Cal, Ash,
doing
and
behind
Dylan.
the camera. Let's get it. We'll put links
guys.
to the descriptions of all the stuff we talked about and the artists and stuff. So peace.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Peace.